This week we begin a new book and a new parsha, and they're both called Bamidbar. In the beginning of the parsha, Moshe and Aaron receive instructions to count the Jews. The simple, or I would call the straightforward or pshat level, would seem to be is that the Jews at this point are going to be leaving Mount Sinai, which means the time has come to start the trek to the land of Israel. Now, I don't want to ruin the book for you, but those of us who know how it ends know that this generation never does really make it there. Instead of going directly to the land of Israel, the Jews end up sinning. They end up being the sin of the meraglim, of the spies. And at the end, this entire generation perishes. Nonetheless, at this time, we need to make some changes, which means the existence that we've known for the past year, which is most of the time since we left the land of Egypt, has been spent at Mount Sinai. They've been at Mount Sinai as of this point ever since Rosh Chodesh Sivan, and this book begins at Rosh Chodesh Iyar, so 11 months have gone by. In 20 more days, they're going to leave, which means it's an entire year, except for 10 days. So the straightforward reading of the counting is to get an army ready, to know how many young people we have, how many capable people we have, how many people can help with the war effort, which may come sooner rather than later. But the commentaries look for other reasons as well for the counting. Rashi tells us it's because God loves the Jewish people. And what really Rashi is grappling with is not just the counting which is taking place now, but is rather the fact that, at least the way the Rashi states it, is that this is the third time in the past year that they've been counted. They were counted when they left Egypt. They were counted after the sin of the golden calf, and now they're counted again. And the way the Rashi says it, that after the golden calf, they're counted to see how many people remain, how many people died during the golden calf. And the way he puts it now is because holiness, or the Shekhinah, is entering into the community. And therefore they're counted again, perhaps as a preparation for this holiness. There's a comment by the Ramban, which I think will help us understand this, perhaps in a slightly different way, or perhaps in a better way. The Ramban cites Rashi, and then he continues and he tells us something about how the counting itself took place. He says that each person would come, stand in front of Moshe and Aaron. They would state who they are, who their parents are, and then they would be accepted. But it says another thing in the Ramban, that Moshe would look and Aaron would look and see this person, look in their eyes, and give this person a blessing. And I can't help but imagine that the individual was most likely completely, A, transfixed, but B, transformed by having Moshe paying attention, looking in their eye, talking to them, and ultimately blessing them and wishing them a long life, productive life, along with all the others. And I think there's really an important point over here. We have great leaders, but sometimes it happens that the average person doesn't know the great leader. I remember, and this happened a number of times in Israel, that a person like Rav Shlomo Zalman Aruch passed away, and the next day or two, the newspapers would talk about who this person was, and a lot of people would say, mainly secular, wow, I didn't know we had a rabbi like this. If I would have known, and generally the sentence doesn't really finish, but it's true, that the average person doesn't have contact with the really great person, and there's a problem with that. I mean, just think for a moment, we teach our children that they should believe in the rabbis, as it were, that the rabbis are the ones who are passing down tradition. If our children or students never meet the great rabbis, and rather they have a different type of rabbi in mind, how can they possibly trust that tradition? So over here, I think that this meeting took place is essential on both sides. It was essential for the individual to have that opportunity to sit with Moshe and with Aaron, or to walk by Moshe and Aaron and to have their couple of seconds. And there's no doubt in my mind that those couple of seconds where the person looks at Moshe and Moshe looks at them, and they look at Aaron and Aaron looks at them, and they have the short conversation, that stayed with them for the rest of their lives. Which means on the one hand, they receive this blessing from these two very great people. On the other hand, they got to see these very great people. They got to spend quality time, even if it was a couple of seconds, because that itself could be transformative. So as Rashi said that the Jews needed, now that the Mishkan was completed, now they needed like this meeting with the Shekhinah, because the Mishkan got filled up with the Shekhinah. It's really interesting, because just that little meeting with Moshe and Aaron may have filled each and every individual with the Shekhinah, with God's presence as well. Shabbat Shalom, Chag Sameach.